Welcome back to True Crime Case Files. Today, we're uncovering a shocking tale of jealousy and violence. A jealous sheriff's wife takes matters into her own hands, brutally beating a teenager to death after discovering she was pregnant with her husband's baby. Join us as we delve into the harrowing details of this tragic case and explore the deadly consequences of betrayal and rage. Emily Grace Carter was an 18-year-old with big dreams and a gentle heart. A recent high school graduate from the small town of Rayford, North Carolina, she was known around town for her bubbly personality and kind nature. Emily had spent her summer stocking shelves at the local Dollar Tree, trying to save up for a move to Raleigh. She had plans to enroll in nursing school, hoping to work in healthcare to make a difference in people's lives, inspired after her single mother died of cancer. Her ambition and drive were admired by those who knew her. Despite her youth, Emily was mature beyond her years and often took on a caretaker role with her younger siblings, Jenny and Noah. She was protective of them and was often the one to help with schoolwork or take them for a treat at the local Dairy Queen. Emily's life took an unexpected turn when she met Sheriff Tom Mitchell, a respected law enforcement officer in Rayford. Their paths first crossed at a local community event, where Tom, known for his charisma and friendly nature, struck up a conversation with Emily. What started as friendly chats quickly evolved. Tom, 45 years old and married, had a way of making Emily feel special and noticed in a way no one else had. For a young woman feeling confined by the small-town life, Tom's attention felt exciting and different. Their relationship grew in secrecy, with stolen kisses and hidden sex. For Emily, these moments with Tom felt like glimpses into a different world, one she longed for but also feared. She knew the affair was risky, but the sheriff's attention and the thrill of it all made it hard to resist. In early July of 2017, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news shook her, bringing excitement and fear in equal parts. She shared her secret with only her closest friends, telling them she was unsure what to do but felt that Tom should know. Emily was torn. She worried about Tom's reaction, his family, and the scandal that would erupt in a town where everyone knew each other. But she was also starting to feel that her future was tied to this baby, and that perhaps Tom would be ready to be part of it. In the days before her death, Emily confided in friends that she was planning to confront Tom about the pregnancy. She hoped he would support her and imagined them moving forward together somehow. However, she was nervous, sensing that her life could drastically change depending on his response. For Emily, this was a period of deep uncertainty, marked by both hopeful dreams and intense fears. The young woman who had once dreamed only of Raleigh and a nursing career now saw her life going in a different, unplanned direction, one that would sadly end in her death. On July 17, 2017, around 7:30 a.m., Jenny Carter, Emily's 15-year-old sister, discovered Emily's body in the woods behind their Rayford home. The family's modest house sat on the edge of a wooded area, a place where Emily and her siblings often played as children. That morning, Jenny had gone outside to look for Emily, who hadn't come home the previous night. At first, she noticed broken branches and disturbed dirt leading into the trees, raising her curiosity and fear. As Jenny moved further into the woods, she saw her sister lying on the ground, her body bruised and lifeless. Emily was naked, and her skin was marked with cuts and bruises. Shocked, Jenny froze, taking in the horrifying sight before she could fully grasp what had happened. After a few minutes of silent disbelief, she ran back to the house and called 911, her hands shaking as she dialed. Her voice trembled as she spoke to the dispatcher, barely able to convey what she had seen. When paramedics and law enforcement arrived, Jenny was sitting on the porch steps, pale and visibly shaken, wrapped in a blanket by a neighbor who had come over after hearing the commotion. The scene quickly became chaotic, with first responders rushing to secure the area while other family members stood by in shock. Neighbors started gathering, murmuring about the tragic news, some mentioning how they'd just seen Emily a day or two before, smiling and laughing. Emily's body was officially identified on site, and her death sent a wave of grief and fear through Rayford. As her body was taken away for an autopsy, Jenny and her family were left in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the brutality of what had just happened to their daughter and sister. Emily's tragic death soon became the main topic of conversation around town, especially as news spread that the investigation would involve some well-known people. Local news outlets, like the Fayetteville Observer, covered the story, as the community mourned the loss of the young woman with a bright future. Police arrived quickly on the scene just after 8 o'clock a.m. on July 17, 2017. officers from the Rayford Police Department, led by Detective Laura Adams, a seasoned investigator known for her calm, meticulous approach, secured the area where Emily's body was found. The scene was deeply unsettling. Emily's body lay in a small clearing in the woods behind her family's house, marked by bruises, cuts, and signs of a brutal beating. She had been stripped of her clothing, with dirt and leaves scattered around her as if there had been a struggle. Blood was smeared on nearby rocks and tree roots, painting a clear picture of the violence she'd endured. As the investigators combed through the scene, they found signs that hinted at a larger story. Tucked between some rocks nearby was a discarded syringe and a burnt spoon, Ivan's Detective Adams recognized as drug paraphernalia. Although Emily wasn't known to use drugs, the evidence raised questions about what she might have been involved in or who else might have been there that night. When Emily's body was examined at the scene, the medical examiner found a small swelling in her abdomen. This prompted a quick check, and preliminary findings indicated she was in the early stages of pregnancy. The discovery shocked the investigators and added an unexpected layer to the case. Rumors had already been circulating about Emily's recent changes in behavior, and now police had to consider whether her pregnancy could be a motive. Police were shocked when the paternity test later confirmed the father to be Sheriff Tom Mitchell. Detective Adams, along with her young partner, Officer Mark Jensen, known for his strong instincts and strange sexual habits, took note of every piece of evidence, knowing this case would need careful handling given the sensitive details. As they examined the scene, Detective Adams felt the weight of what this crime might reveal in a close-knit town like Rayford, especially with Emily's secret pregnancy with the town sheriff now in the mix. The police took samples of the blood and collected the drug paraphernalia as evidence, determined to trace every possible lead. With the community watching closely, the investigators knew they needed answers, and fast. During their investigation, police turned their attention to Sheriff Tom Mitchell, a well-known figure in Rayford with a long-standing reputation as a leader in the community. Sheriff Mitchell, 45, had held his position for over a decade and was respected by many for his easygoing manner and quick sense of humor. But when questioned about Emily Grace Carter, Mitchell showed signs of discomfort, revealing a more complicated side of his character. Under questioning, Sheriff Mitchell sheepishly admitted that he and Emily began a sexual relationship several months earlier. According to him, they met during one of his patrol rounds when he stopped by the Dollar Tree where Emily worked. He initially told police that he had been tempted by her hot body after helping her with small favors, such as giving her rides or offering career advice. But as the questioning continued, Mitchell confessed that their relationship had turned romantic and then physical, describing it as an unfortunate lapse in judgment. Mitchell also admitted that, just days before her death, Emily had told him she was pregnant. He claimed that the news had taken him by surprise, and though he didn't seem thrilled about the pregnancy, he told police he was willing to support her financially. However, when detectives dug deeper, they uncovered troubling information about Mitchell's past that indicated a pattern. In examining Mitchell's records, police found a series of hidden payments made to several women over the years. Using police funds, he had made discreet payouts to at least 5 women, all of whom he had reportedly been sexually involved with and who had become pregnant as a result. These payments, labeled as miscellaneous expenses, appeared sporadically in police budgets and were never linked to specific accounts. The transactions raised red flags for the investigators, who quickly recognized that Mitchell had been hiding these relationships to protect his reputation. Mitchell's history revealed a pattern of seducing young women, often, like Emily, vulnerable or in need of guidance, and then paying them off to keep the affairs secret. His confession shocked investigators and fueled their suspicions that Mitchell might have been more deeply involved in Emily's death than he let on. His evasive responses and casual attitude toward these discoveries led Detective Laura Adams and her team to press harder, suspecting that Mitchell may have had more to lose if Emily's pregnancy became public. Police began to consider whether Mitchell's actions went beyond hidden relationships and payouts, wondering if his desire to protect his career, and perhaps his marriage, was strong enough to lead him to drastic measures. This new information cast a dark shadow over the sheriff's previously respected image, making it clear that he was not simply an officer of the law, but potentially a suspect with a motive worth investigating further. Karen Mitchell, the sheriff's wife and a well-known figure in Rayford's social scene, was quickly called in for questioning. A homemaker known for her sharp tongue and high standards, Karen, 42, had long been an active force in her husband's life and career. But as police delved into her background, they began to sense a different side of Karen, one shaped by resentment, suspicion, and bitterness over the state of her marriage. In her interview, Karen didn't hold back. She told police she'd suspected her husband of cheating for years, noting strange stains she'd found on their bedsheets and whispers from townsfolk that she'd chosen to ignore. Karen explained how she'd often pushed these suspicions aside, focusing on, quote, my duties as a Christian wife, and telling herself that Tom was dedicated to her and their family. But deep down, she had her doubts, especially when Tom's behavior changed dramatically over the past few months. She noticed he would work late without explanation and became secretive about his phone. While Karen wanted to believe his excuses, she started to feel like something was terribly wrong. The breaking point came when Karen, by what she called accident, stumbled across a disturbing video on Tom's laptop. In her words, she was cleaning his home office and had opened his laptop to shut it down. But instead of the usual files, she found a sex tape of Tom and a much younger woman, who she quickly recognized as Emily Grace Carter. She watched only a few seconds before realizing what it was. The two having sex late at night in the aisles of the local Dollar Tree. Karen described feeling sick and devastated, unable to believe what she'd seen. Karen claimed she had planned to confront Tom about the tape, but before she could, she learned something even more shocking. Emily was pregnant. One of Karen's friends had seen Emily at a local pharmacy purchasing prenatal vitamins and mentioned it to her casually. Karen connected the dots immediately, realizing the pregnancy was likely Tom's doing. The revelation left her feeling humiliated and angry, betrayed in a way that she couldn't keep hidden. Karen told police that she never confronted Emily about the pregnancy directly, but police later uncovered evidence suggesting otherwise. Investigators found messages on Karen's phone in which she arranged to meet Emily at the local pool just days before her death. Witnesses later confirmed seeing the two together, describing the exchange as heated and intense. Karen reportedly lunging at her with a pair of garden scissors, accusing Emily of being a bleeping bleep who's only wanted bleep, and demanding to know her intentions with Tom. This direct confrontation contradicted Karen's statements to police, suggesting she was willing to do more than just confront Emily privately. When pressed by detectives, Karen admitted that she'd been furious. She described feeling humiliated, like her life had unraveled before her eyes. She said her emotions were complicated, mixing jealousy with rage at Tom for disrespecting her and fear over the impact this would have on their family's standing in the community. Karen's statements painted a picture of a woman on the edge, one who had tolerated years of infidelity rumors, but found the reality of Emily's pregnancy unbearable. Police left the interview with serious doubts about Karen's role in the case. Her emotions and actions in the days leading up to Emily's death painted a clear motive, making her a top suspect in what was quickly becoming one of Rayford's most shocking investigations. As police combed through the scene of Emily Grace Carter's murder, they stumbled upon a detail that shifted their investigation in a new direction. Amidst the scattered debris, they found drug paraphernalia, including used syringes and a small bag of white powder, near where Emily's body was discovered. When detectives traced the items, they were linked back to Emily's 15-year-old sister, Jenny Carter, a quiet and reserved teenager. Jenny's connection to the drugs sent investigators down a different path, considering the possible ways her addiction might tie into Emily's murder. They theorized several possible scenarios, each as troubling as the last. One theory was that Jenny's drug use had led to a confrontation between the sisters. Detectives considered whether Jenny might have resented Emily's intervention, and whether this family tension had somehow escalated into a fatal altercation. This idea gained traction as police learned more about Jenny's drug-related struggles, which were more severe than even close family members knew. Another scenario police explored was the possibility that Jenny had owed money to her drug suppliers. Emily, who had only part-time work at Dollar Tree, might have offered financial help to cover Jenny's debts, though such assistance would have strained Emily's limited means. Investigators considered that the debts or pressure from dealers could have led to Emily's death if she had stepped into dangerous territory on her sister's behalf. Police also speculated whether Jenny's addiction could have inadvertently drawn a dangerous crowd into their lives. Perhaps Emily's knowledge of her sister's involvement with these individuals put her at risk, making her a target for people connected to Jenny's drug issues. As they looked deeper into Jenny's recent activities, they found texts on her phone indicating she was in contact with a small group of local drug users and dealers. The messages painted a picture of a young girl in over her head, trying to hide her addiction from her family while spiraling deeper into a risky world. This discovery of Jenny's connection to drugs raised troubling questions about the family's hidden dynamics and how they might have played into Emily's death. Police were now faced with multiple theories, each implicating Jenny's drug use as a possible catalyst for the tragic events that led to her sister's murder. Investigators had to dig deeper into the Carter family's relationships and Jenny's secret life before drawing any final conclusions. In a tense interview room, Jenny Carter finally opened up to investigators, revealing shocking details about her struggles and connections to Sheriff Tom Mitchell. Jenny admitted she had been secretly addicted to drugs since shortly after her mother's death from cancer. At just 15, Jenny said she felt lost and alone, turning to drugs as a way to numb the overwhelming pain. Her addiction had quickly spiraled, but she managed to keep it hidden from most people in her life, until Sheriff Tom Mitchell discovered it. Jenny revealed that Sheriff Mitchell had caught her using drugs earlier that year and even arrested her. Instead of taking her through the usual legal process, he began putting pressure on her, insinuating that she could work off the arrest by entering into a sexual relationship with him. At that moment, Jenny had felt trapped. She was terrified of her addiction becoming public and felt she had no power against someone as respected and influential as the sheriff. But Emily had stepped in. Jenny told police that when Emily learned of her predicament, she'd been horrified and protective. Emily, who had always taken on a motherly role after their mother passed away, confronted Sheriff Mitchell, pleading with him to leave Jenny alone. According to Jenny, Emily even made an offer. She would enter a sexual relationship with Sheriff Mitchell herself if he promised to protect Jenny and let her go. This sacrifice marked the start of Emily's relationship with the sheriff, a dark arrangement that Emily kept from everyone else, including her friends. Jenny's confession left investigators stunned. She described how this entire situation had made her feel guilty and powerless. She had initially been relieved when Emily intervened, hoping it would be the end of her troubles. But as time went on, Jenny began to realize the cost of her sister's help. She watched Emily become increasingly distant and withdrawn. Emily's once bright personality had started to fade, replaced by anxiety and secrecy, and Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that her sister was bearing her burden. Police noted Jenny's anguish as she spoke, painting a heartbreaking picture of the emotional toll the situation had taken on her. As they wrapped up the interview, investigators knew they needed to dig deeper into Sheriff Mitchell's past and the dynamics between the sisters. Jenny's emotional testimony revealed a complex web of relationships marred by manipulation, fear, and heartache, highlighting the tragic consequences of their circumstances. As detectives pieced together Emily's final days, one name kept coming up: Karen Mitchell, the sheriff's wife. The evidence pointed to a devastating sequence of events that led to Emily's death. According to their findings, Karen had become increasingly disturbed and jealous after discovering Emily's pregnancy. In her mind, Emily wasn't just another one of her husband's flings. She was a threat, a young woman carrying her husband's child and possibly the key to a scandal that could tear apart Karen's carefully crafted world. The night of the murder, Karen had waited until she knew Emily would be home alone. Detectives believe she confronted the teenager outside her house, in the small patch of woods nearby where they wouldn't be easily seen. At first, Karen tried to keep calm, demanding that Emily end her pregnancy and disappear. But as Emily resisted, a heated argument broke out. When Karen saw that Emily was unmoved by her threats, something in her snapped. Driven by a mix of anger, fear, and betrayal, she grabbed a heavy wooden club, a tool she brought along just in case, and began striking Emily. In her fury, Karen hardly noticed the blood or the bruises she left on Emily's body. She just kept hitting, all the emotion she'd bottled up now exploding into violence. When she finally stopped, she saw Emily's lifeless body and the full reality hit her. She'd gone too far. After the murder, Karen had tried to clean herself up, hiding the club and heading home, hoping to go on with her life as if nothing had happened. She assumed that, as the sheriff's wife, she'd never be suspected, but detectives found clues linking her to the crime. Investigators analyzed the club and discovered faint traces of Karen's fingerprints. They also identified fabric fibers on Emily's body that matched clothing Karen was known to wear regularly. On the morning of July 27, 2017, police moved to arrest Karen Mitchell. Detectives arrived at her home early in the morning, knocking on her door just as the sun was rising. She answered in a calm manner, initially assuming it was another routine visit. But when they informed her of the murder charge, her demeanor changed. Karen's face went pale, and she tried to deny any involvement, claiming she'd been home all night. But under pressure, her composure cracked. She was led out in handcuffs, looking down and avoiding the stares of neighbors who had gathered outside. For the Carter family, the news of Karen's arrest brought both relief and sorrow. They would never get Emily back, but they finally had some answers. Karen's actions had shattered her own life, her family's image, and left the community stunned. In May of 2018, Karen Mitchell's trial began, drawing a packed courtroom and local media interest. Her defense team, led by attorney Wallace Case, took an unexpected approach, a cheated wife defense. Karen claimed that she was driven to a breaking point by her husband's years of infidelity, specifically his relationship with Emily. Her lawyers argued that Karen's actions were the result of severe emotional trauma, worsened by Sheriff Tom Mitchell's betrayal and the shock of learning about Emily's pregnancy. They painted a picture of Karen as a woman struggling with mental anguish, asserting that she never intended to kill Emily but had acted in a moment of uncontrollable anger. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Linda Chavez, countered this argument strongly. Chavez presented evidence of Karen's calculated actions that night, including the club she had brought to the confrontation. Chavez argued that Karen had premeditated the attack, aiming to eliminate Emily as a threat to her marriage and her social standing. Chavez stated that Karen's motive wasn't temporary madness, but a desire to protect her reputation and prevent any scandal from reaching her family. To the jury, Chavez argued that Emily was an innocent victim, targeted simply for her involvement with Tom. The trial's emotional weight was clear, especially when Emily's friends took the stand, describing their loss and the impact of Emily's death. Friends and neighbors also testified to Emily's gentle nature, contrasting with the violent end she met. Throughout the trial, Karen's expression remained a mixture of shame and defiance, though she occasionally shed tears when her lawyer highlighted her husband's betrayal. After 2 weeks of deliberations and powerful closing arguments, the jury found Karen Mitchell guilty of second-degree murder. The verdict seemed to hit her with a cold finality. She kept her head down as the judge delivered a sentence of 25 years in prison, without the possibility of parole. As the sentence was read, Karen's composure faltered. She appeared shaken, visibly absorbing the reality of her future. Emily's family expressed a bittersweet sense of justice. Karen's sentencing brought some closure. The community's reaction was mixed. Some sympathized with Karen's portrayal as a woman pushed to the edge, while others viewed the punishment as justice served. For Karen, her story would end behind bars, a stark contrast to the life of social respect she once held. The aftermath of the trial left lasting scars on the lives of all involved. Karen Mitchell was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the second-degree murder of Emily Grace. She entered the Ohio Correctional Institution for Women, where she faced the reality of her actions every day. Over the years, she would often think back to her life before the murder, filled with family gatherings and community events. However, her life now revolved around prison routines and counseling sessions, which were part of her rehabilitation. Meanwhile, Sheriff Tom Mitchell faced a different kind of reckoning. After the trial, authorities launched an investigation into his misuse of public funds. It was discovered that he had been making secret payments to several women, including Emily, to cover up his extramarital affairs. In May of 2018, just weeks after Karen's sentencing, Tom was charged with multiple counts of misappropriation of funds and misconduct in office. He was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The scandal rocked the small town of Winchester, leaving many residents shocked and disappointed. They had once viewed Tom as a respected leader, but his actions shattered that trust. As for Jenny, her story took a different turn. After her tragic experience and the loss of her sister, she entered a rehabilitation program to address her struggles with substance abuse. With the support of counselors and a dedicated recovery community, Emily worked hard to rebuild her life. By 2019, she had not only graduated from her rehab program, but also went on to graduate from college with a degree in social work. Jenny wanted to help others who faced similar challenges, using her experiences to inspire and support those in need. In the end, the lives of Karen, Tom, and Emily intersected in a tragic way, leaving behind a web of heartache. Karen's imprisonment forced her to confront the consequences of her actions, while Tom's fall from grace left him alone and disgraced. Jenny, on the other hand, emerged as a survivor. She learned to navigate her pain and loss, dedicating her life to helping others find their path to recovery. Their stories became a cautionary tale for the community, reminding everyone of the devastating effects of betrayal and violence.